Registration alone into the league per year was about $4,500. We always had to have a field with a stadium to be minimum 3,000 people stadium. Player that he's now the captain of his national team, British Virgin Islands.
Hello, everyone. We're back interviewing some of our awesome clients at Clubhouse Athletic. Today, we're talking with Ben from Potros FC and also Volare Athletic. We'll talk about that a little bit. And here's another example of somebody who I thought of to right off the bat to interview because they've been kind of starting their own things and probably have a unique journey with business side and also sports team side in this case. Running their own club or with other people. So Ben, why don't you start? Just introduce yourself, your club, and your guys' focus, like what you guys do.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Uranga. I am the assistant manager for Potros FC. We're a family-operated club based around Atlanta, Georgia. My brother, Christopher, he's the manager, the one kind of the main operations guy. I'm just kind of the one who feeds ideas to him, and he's the one who makes it happen. But we are currently an amateur club that just plays in Metro Atlanta. Previous seasons, we were a semi-professional club playing in the UPSL. It's a national league, but due to some things that we can probably get into later on, we're just going to be amateur for this season and reevaluate at the end of this season to see where we're going to go forward from there.
Awesome. And to start, to give a little bit of perspective for everybody, what's like the scale of Potros right now? How many people are involved, work there, play within it? And I guess like the structure of like, are you guys year round, stuff like that?
So we're a year round club. We just kind of take a few weeks off for like the summer and then like the holidays around December and New Year's. Other than that, we provide training all year round and try to look for friendlies when we're not in season. Look for different tournaments, competitions. Right now, it's just a family operation, but in the past, we've had physios in the club. We've had social media marketing people and members, like players. At one point, we were at about 80 players in the club, spread across 3 teams. But since we're scaling down to amateur, it's to have one team with 80 players. It's not exactly ideal. So we're at about 20 to 30 players right now.
Cool. All right. This will be really interesting too. Yeah. Since you guys have gone through a couple of changes, talk about how you've went through them, decided to make those changes and everything like that. But first, to start, can you lay out the difference between the amateur and a semi-pro distinction?
Yeah. So the amateur league that we play in, the competition is really high. There's a lot of ex-collegiate, ex-professional players, or even some professional players just in their off season, just trying to play. But I would say the difference between switching from semi-professional to amateur is really just the organization for the teams that we compete against, and then the organization within the league itself. Just the semi-professional just kind of holds you to higher standards. For example, we always had to have a field with a stadium. I think had to be minimum 3,000 people stadium. We never had that many players at the game, but that was kind of the standard they held us to. So just kind of like the requirements, and then just holding the other teams accountable. And then like in our amateur, like I said, the teams that we're playing against are very high competition. It's not much different from the amateur to the semi-professional level. It's just the amateur players are showing up 5 minutes before the game, but still playing just as good as the other guys.
Yeah, I gotcha. So there's, the playing level could be pretty comparable, but in terms of the structure of the league, the requirements, and I'm assuming the like economics of it too, is there different, like, is it more expensive? You guys have to hire more people or get more volunteers? Like, how does that work? What's the difference
So
there?
the financial part of it is the main reason that we're scaling back. It was a huge investment to play semi-professionally because, like I said, the requirements and the standards are much higher. And the reality is that we just didn't have the players to compete because in order to cover the costs to stay in that league, we had to charge a monthly membership, and there were competitive teams out there that were, I'm not sure where they got the money, but they were able to offer them to play for free. And so players were just leaving our club to go play for free, which is understandable, but
Hmm.
it was just something that financially we couldn't afford that.
It's competitive on the field, but also competitive on like at a money standpoint. Like you have to really compete
Yeah.
there too. What are the type of requirements that were needed that threw up some red flags for you that, or maybe like had made you guys think twice? And I'm asking this from a perspective of a club maybe thinking about jumping to that next level. What are some of the big things that you would advise people to keep in mind or warn them about?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing financially and the most difficult thing to do, like just from a logistics perspective, is finding facilities. Because the league requires, like I mentioned, a field with a stadium. And then they're also increasing the standards that now you have to provide locker rooms as well, which is very difficult. I'm not sure how it is everywhere else, but over here in Atlanta, soccer is not the biggest yet. It's growing, but still they're not giving priority to soccer clubs. There's not many soccer fields. A little bit more on the east side of Atlanta, but we're on the west side, so there's not many facilities to find locker rooms and be able to fulfill those requirements, and then as well as training.
Yeah.
So we just find spaces at public parks, and again, that's another financial thing, is being able to secure a field, which we were willing to make that investment, but we couldn't even find anything that would allow us to rent a field for these times that we could do. We could
Hmm.
do things in the morning, but all the players work, so we wouldn't have anyone in training. And then I would say the other obstacle that isn't financial, but it's just finding players that are committed. Because even though it's a semi-professional
Hmm.
level, because it's semi-professional, we can't pay the player, so they have to find their economy some other way. So all of our players work, they go to school, they have other priorities, and or some of them just lack commitment and they just don't feel a need to go to training. So being able to compete at a high level like that, we need players that will be able to go to every training session and be like that. But last season, we're playing the highest level, only had like a few players that would go to every training, and it was just
Hmm.
that's just something that's very difficult as well.
Yeah. So talking about like securing fields and putting money up for a bunch of different things to get started in the league. You're talking about investments for you guys and how you're investing. I'm sure it's like a lot of like your families, individual people putting up money or trying to generate donations and stuff like that. Is the approach a business approach of like I'm investing in this because I'm hoping this club will be able to, produce profit, sell tickets, and like be a bigger business approach, or is it more so like grassroots football club approach where it's like we're doing it to have it just sustain itself so it can grow as a club and develop players and be a part of the community? What's the idea? Do you think most people of these semi-pro clubs joining these leagues?
So I think for most people, they're doing it for trying to turn a profit. They have the aspirations of trying to be a professional club, sell tickets, grow, and everything. But for us, it was the latter. Our goal every season was just to net zero. We
Hmm.
we started off at a very small scale, and we would build up all like from the monthly memberships, anything that we didn't have to pay for registration, anything we put in a separate account. And that was how we were able to originally invest to join that semi-pro league. But then the investments every season would get more and more. So it was just every season our goal was to be at zero. A few seasons we were in negative, a few seasons we were in positive, but then with those positives we would make other investments and then we'd be at zero. But the main goal was just to try to keep our membership as low as we can, to be able to give these guys an opportunity to play at a high level and learn from us and our experiences and how they can develop as players as well.
You have an idea, if you don't mind, of like in terms of picturing like rough estimate for somebody like thinking about joining a semi-pro league, like what type of numbers are being thrown out for like securing a field or for getting a stadium to allow you to play there, or joining the league, like the league fees? What's the cost of like the general cost of those types of things joining the league that someone would keep in mind? Is it $100 for each of those things? Is it 1,000? Like, what's the budget to keep in mind?
Do you want to know like just like from our perspective, because we had multiple teams
Yeah,
across
from
multiple
your
leagues, or do you want to know like just putting one team in this like a semi-pro league?
from your perspective joining that semi-pro league, like what did it look like for those? Yeah, for those different investments.
Uh,
What type of numbers was
so
that?
I don't know exactly. This is going off memory, and Christopher, if you're watching, I'm sorry if I butcher these
Yeah.
numbers. But I would say like for putting one team in the league, because we had three teams last season, but let's say we're putting one team into the semi-pro league. I think registration alone into the league per year was about $4,000. Oh no, $4,500. I would say securing fields. Let's assume you have 5 home games a season, so 10 home games in the year. That would be another like $5,000 to $6,000. That's actually a steal if we because we were very fortunate to get a field that met the requirements at that price, but it would be more at most other facilities. Um, and then if you're going to be training at a field that you're renting, those numbers are going to add up even more because that's like multiple times a week. So that could be up to like 3,000 a month or something like that. But luckily, we were able to find spaces at public parks to train, so we
Yeah.
saved a lot of money in that aspect. But we also had to deal with lights turning off or other teams that rented the fields kicking us out, us like having to find a corner, other stuff like that. So it's difficult to compete at a high level in that way, but we found a way to make it work at times. And
Yeah.
then there's also uniform fees. I know Clubhouse Athletic is a very, very good company. So if you're listening to this,
Great
work
plug.
with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that adds up as well. I think it was about for home and away, like everything for I think it was like a 30 team set. I think we paid like $2,000 to $3,000, something like that. But that investment is long term because we can keep our uniforms for 2 years, and it
Hmm.
kind of it's not like a recurring payment. So in total, I lost count. So I'll just say it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And then are there any like kind of hidden ones that you kind of forget about, you pick up along the way, whether it be like runs to like Dick's Sporting Goods to get cones and like, crap like that? Like, are there some hidden fees you'd warn people
Oh
about?
yeah, I forgot to mention referee fees as well. So per game, we have to pay referees. It's like 140 a game. I think that price is rising recently. And then there's also
A little bit extra if you want the calls.
exactly, yeah. But the other team always pays more. It seems like. No, but then yeah, there's also paying gas. We had a few games out in Alabama, Birmingham, so we would rent vans. Those kind of things. Sometimes we had to go down to Savannah. It's about a 4-hour drive. And then if you make it to like national playoffs, let's say, and you have to play a game in New York because that's where the finals are or something, you have to pay for hotels, flights, other things like that. And that could be like a cost of a whole season in just like 2 games.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wild. So going over all of this, yeah, we can get into the details of your guys' decision of moving forward with like the different leagues you're going for. Obviously, there's a ton of the financial side investment going into it, and if you have a lot of players, there's a lot to like manage. Um, what would be the upsides if you guys did have like plenty of funding and you can keep this rolling? Like, why would somebody put all that up if you can get good competition in amateur leagues? What are the plus sides to it? What'd you like about the league?
About the semi-professional or oh,
Semi-pro league, yeah, sorry.
yeah. So I would say the benefit there is that there's more eyes on that league. Um, there's a lot of players in the league we've played in have been recruited to play professionally. Excuse me one second. We've had a few players in our club as well be able to compete with us and go play college, get a full ride scholarship. And then we even had one player that he's now the captain of his national team for the British Virgin Islands. So it's kind of, even if they're not getting recruited directly, like we have a scout at our game, just being able to say they play in this league, in this competition, they're able to connect with coaches and talk to them and show them like, look, I can play at this level against these guys. A few players recently in a team that we would compete with every season signed for Atlanta United too. Um, so it's more room for growth for the players individually, which is a very gratifying feeling as a manager of a club when you see your players move on to the next level.
Gotcha. So like, that little bit more official league helps you get maybe a little bit more official eyes or recruitment,
Yeah.
like you said. Um, Interesting. Okay. And then I have a lot of things I want to dive into because it's really interesting, the stuff you guys have to sift
Mm-hmm.
through. Um, in terms of your player member fees and maybe other donations and stuff like that, how does a club like yours generate money to keep it going there, or keep it going on the amateur side? What's involved in that? Do you guys have to go door to door to businesses and get sponsors? What's that look
Yeah,
like?
so that's something that we struggled with a lot is finding sponsors. Just going to be honest, me and my family are not the best business sense, not very good at marketing or salespeople. So we've had help from a few others that were involved in the club to help secure sponsors as well. So that helped us a ton. We've had a few Mexican restaurants and then another soccer communication app called Bella Football. They're kind of a startup for like soccer specific communications. They reached out to us and we formed a relationship there and got a sponsor there that helped us a lot. And then I would say that covered a good portion of it, but not the most. So most of the money that we get is from the players themselves. So right now we charge $85 a month, which um, the way that we think about it is if you're paying for a training session, players usually pay, some of them pay $50 an hour. So we do 2 nights, 2 hours. So it's like 4 hours. So that's $200 for a week right there. But we give them an entire month of training and registration and practice uniforms for games, everything for that $85 a month. So like it sounds like a lot, but if you put into perspective into what you're getting, it's very low because like I said, we're not profiting from it at all. We're just trying to get at zero. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of that's how we generate all of our revenue is a few from sponsors that helps a bit, but mostly it's from the players themselves.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to think about like per week or per month membership of like I'm thinking about monthly memberships that like I live in Chicago in the city and people pay. I don't really do the classes. I'm not too fit, but people pay for like big money to go to a fitness class, and it's like almost like, hey, you have two fitness classes a week included in this. You know, like soccer practices are pretty high intensity. You can even just think about it as a fitness
Yeah.
membership that you also get to compete. And I think people also really value the idea of organized competition, especially as you get older. Like you lose the like easy outlets with youth
Mm-hmm.
sports, and having organized competition where you know people are going to be there, you know it's going to be a certain level of competition, and you'll know you'll get some playing time and get to run around versus pickup. I can go to the court some days, I won't get on to for an hour, some days no one's there to play, I'm playing like horse with
Mm-hmm.
somebody. So there's definitely like those pluses of fitness and also just having organized competition. Be interesting if you guys just sold it as a soccer fitness package. How many workout classes people could sign up
Yeah,
for?
honestly.
Um, it's interesting. And the other part was you said you kind of leveraged a couple of people helped like find sponsorships within the community. When you have, even if you have like 18 people in your club, those are 18 people you're networking with within your city that have to have someone within those has some sort of relationship with a business or somebody else to find you a sponsorship. So I think it's good for people to like use your network immediately to figure out who in town would want to be involved. What were those sponsors you think sold on? Was it just because they were friends of friends and they just wanted to support? Did they see like, oh, this would be really good to get, the players involved with their Mexican restaurant? Like, what was the value you think that you guys sold them on with for the sponsorship?
So the two of them that helped us with the restaurants we were close with the owners for one of them, and then one of the players was close with the owner for the other. I know one of them, I think they mentioned they just like the uniform a lot and they just wanted to be on it and have their own. Um, but
Hmm.
I think what sold it was,
I've heard that.
but what I think what sold it the most was that they know that they were supporting the community and someone that they knew, because they knew that what we were doing was trying to give these players a platform to grow. And one of the players that helped us get one of the sponsorships, he, in my opinion, he has the potential to be a professional player. So a lot of people are supporting him. They think the same, that he could be professional. So I think that they wanted to support the club to help support him to grow as well. So it's I think the main
Hmm.
aspect is just trying to be involved in that growth for these individuals.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, I think the uniform side of it too is funny. It's like obviously depends business to business. A couple of clubs I work with in Chicago, I know might use like if you contact some businesses for sponsorship, like one way and other people do it is like figure out what companies have a little bit extra in the bank at the end of each year and need to spend some for tax reasons or something, and they'll like put it towards like especially I know there's like plenty of clubs that like sign up to as like philanthropy, like what are they called, charity or non for
Mm-hmm.
profits, and so businesses like will put money into that as a way to like support the charity, but also like it's off their books
Yeah.
too. And they're like, wait, this is awesome, a good way to spend our money. And they have like jersey framed in their office. Like it adds like to the culture of the business. Like you can get employees to go to the games. Like it's something to kind of like buy your business into, get excited about. And uniforms a part of it. Like, yeah, our name's right there. We're part of an Atlanta or a Georgia soccer
Mm-hmm.
team. It's interesting. Okay, let's see. A couple other things we're getting into is players. We've talked about it a little bit. I want to dive into that. And then the other part is like the starting part of starting the club, which we're working backwards a little bit. I'll go to the players right now. I know that's a hard thing from youth sports all the way to adult sports, is like getting players consistently involved in a program. Adults is a completely unique situation because, like you said, they have full time jobs. They're not getting paid. Sometimes they're paying for it. What's the landscape look like for you guys? How many players do you have now? How many players do you expect to show up for a training versus are signed up? Like what's that look like?
Yeah. So right now we have about 20 to 30 players within the club. A few of them are on trial. And when we say on trial, it's for them to, it's for us to see if they're going to be able to compete in games as well, as them seeing if they like the club as well. So instead of paying for a full month of membership and then not liking it and just having to like stick through, they pay like a reduced fee for a trial fee. And if they don't like it, they can just leave whenever they'd like. Um, but yeah, so we have about 20 to 30 players, and each training session, I say we'll have about 15 recently. So it's a pretty good number that shows up. But it's different players every time. But we understand, like some guys they work construction. They say, oh, I have a job in Alabama or I have a job in Tennessee or something like that, and they can't get back in time. So that's just kind of how it works right
Hmm.
now.
Gotcha. And you get like a head count before you head to practice, or do you just kind of know when you show
Yeah,
up?
so I'm gonna plug one of our sponsors again. So thanks to Bella Football, the communication app, they uh, they have a feature where
So this is how you get sponsorships. You plug them in your
exactly.
podcast
No,
appearances.
I appreciate their support, and it's a good app. It's kind of similar to like Discord, Slack, but for soccer. So they have an events tab. So we create like practice on this day, and we send it out to everyone, and they vote yes or no that they're going. So we'll have an idea if they're going or not, like what numbers we'll have to plan for the practice.
And how this is a good like overall question too. Like how strict do you get with these players? Because we said like people have full-time jobs and you're not paying them, so you don't really have rule over them. But how do you guys keep everything in line and keep structure without tearing the team apart?
So the way we do it now is we don't do it super strict. We just say, if you come to practices, you're more likely to get called up for the game, because I mean we can only bring a maximum of 18 players, and if we have 30 players, not all of them are going to get called up. And if there's two guys at the same level, one came to both practices, one didn't come to practices at all, we're going to bring the guy who came to practices. But in the last season,
That
yeah,
helps.
it gives them a little bit more like of a push to make an effort. But like last season when we were competing semi-professionally, we would say if you don't come to a minimum of, we would train 3 times a week, and we would say if you don't come to a minimum of 2 trainings, you're not going to be considered for our first team. You'll be able to play in like our second and third team, but no matter how good you are, if you don't come to the other 2, you won't be in the first. So like the week that we played the Atlanta United Academy, of course we had the most people at training. So all of a sudden they don't work in the evening.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah, at least you put a rule into play, and you kind of like, then you can turn to the rule and lean on that. Like, hey, you didn't hit this, so like, don't blame me or don't blame the coach or manager. That's in place. Because I have a feeling that, like, one is after you play for a while, but also two, if you're within a soccer community, everyone kind of knows each other, friends with each other, so it can also be hard to lay down the hammer sometimes of like, dude, like you screwed yourself. It's not like a coach, telling you can't do it. So I feel like that can be hard with small clubs too, of like holding a certain standard for yourselves. All right, the last thing is probably more fun side of it, and it seemed like you maybe had fun with this too, because you were the one like helping design the uniforms and everything, right? Like you were actually the one putting it together.
So
okay,
I'm not sure if
this might not perfectly.
I'm a UX designer right now. That's what I do full time. But in the past, I've been a graphic designer for. When I was in college, I worked for my university and then just did a lot of freelance throughout the years as well.
I think there's like a lot of like overlap for soccer players and designers or like graphic designers. Something about the personalities, I don't know, but it seems to be a big thing. Like we work with basketball, baseball, soccer, different types of clubs, and whenever you work with a soccer club, it's someone coming in saying like, "Don't worry, I got the designs ready to go." Basketball or baseball, they're like, "Here's something from wherever." It's no shame to those guys, but I'm just saying soccer seems to come with their creative ideas. So I wanted to have like a little bit of a map out of like you guys. I read your about us on the page. It was a kind of a gradual start for Potros in terms of like when you were like teenagers, like more of like training than it was a club, and it built its way up. So I want to go over a little bit of that quickly, how it started, and then kind of into this like quick 1, 2, 3 of starting a club. Like you need the name for it, you need the branding, you need to get colors, the fun things. So we'll go over that. So first, how did it start? Where'd you guys come from? Give us the background.
So it's actually it kind of goes back all the way to when I was like 13 or 14 in the summers, that because there's no youth season or anything.
And you are how old
I am
now?
22.
Just
so this is about 8 years ago. But yeah, so my friends, well, it was more my brother was in high school at the time. I was in middle school, but his friends that played on the same high school team, there was no summer leagues for the youth or anything. So, but we all wanted to get better. So we would kind of just all meet at this park that's like 5 minutes from all of our houses. Some guys would ride their bikes at like 8 a.m. to the park, and my dad would run training sessions for us, just so we could play and just stay in shape, get better. So that's kind of how we started like that. But then like as the years went on, we kind of just only stuck to summers to doing that. And then when I graduated high school, since I was the youngest of the group, so this was 2018. So I was like fresh out of high school. It was literally the day of my graduation. We went to a park to go play. And we were just kind of just kicking the ball around. They had some goals up. We were just taking shots, and we were just like, "Oh, you guys want to put a team?" My brother, he played for the Georgia Tech club soccer team, so he knew about the ADSL, which is an amateur league that we play in now, and he knew about it because the Georgia Tech club team played there as well. So we were like, "Yeah, let's put a team and just put it there, see how it is." So it was really just like a group of friends that we were just playing around, and my dad would run the training sessions, and we would just train twice a week and then play in the games. We were really bad, but it was, I mean, we were all friends. No offense to them. I won't say any specific names. They're really nice people. They're just not great soccer players. But yeah, and then that's how we started. And then we did pretty well. And I used my graphic design skills to like make flyers for like games and stuff like that. And people would think that we were like a really serious club just because of like how nice the design was. They thought like we were like hiring designers for it and everything. So we got a lot of attraction and people asking to join. And then we just kind of started getting good players. And we realized we were starting to run over some teams. Like the competition was getting a little bit easier because at the time we were in like the second division for the ADSL. So we then moved on to the semi-professional league and then started growing more from there.
So you kind of always had this like edge of being more than just like an amateur club that just kind of gets together, the way that you guys got together and trained, and also the idea of putting together flyers for this amateur league and getting people to like think about you guys that way. Did that just come naturally? Or is that just like the creative side of you of like, heck, we have a team, I can put together flyers, and like, who's to say we're not a club?
Yeah, I just did it for fun, if I'm being honest. I
Yeah.
just like, I love designing things, but I had no like motivation to do anything else. So I was like, oh, we got a game coming up. Let me promote it so like our friends can come watch. So that was kind of how it was. Again, I don't think I was good at designing, but like we would have guys from overseas message us and be like, are you guys a professional club? Like I'm looking for a contract and everything. We're like, no, we don't do that.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Okay, so yeah, get into the fun parts of it. So you tell me, I would say the first couple of things in people's mind of like starting a club, the exciting things of like, all right, what's the name going to be? How did the name come
Yeah.
up?
So Potros FC is our name. Potros is Spanish for colts, like a young horse. So the reason we got that name is because my dad, he actually played professionally in Mexico for a team called Atlante. So that's like my home team. Or not my home team, that's his home team, but like the team I grew up watching as a kid, like just the team I always support. And so he played for them, and their mascot is Los Potros de Hierro, which is like the Iron Colts. So when I was in the youth, we were playing just like a rec team, and they asked us for a name, and I was just like, kind of jokingly, I was just like, oh, just Potros, like just so because I didn't want to say Atlante. I thought it was like kind of tacky to pick another team's name. So we were just like, all right. So then we were Potros,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we decided to make our team, we were like, oh, let's just keep the same name. So that was how it worked.
Okay, and then I want to go through these like intro things of like how you named it, the branding and everything like that, and then as almost like a guide to people starting new clubs, and then I want you to go through once we do all of them and rank them of like how important was this for you guys once we go through, because I think some people will be like spending so long on like what is our team name going to be, and then like in reality they have a lot of other things to do. So it'd be interesting to go through what you think is most important. Okay, so you've named it and you have some meaning behind it. Would you have any tips for somebody naming their club?
I I
Because you said you just shot from the hip, it kind of came naturally.
Yeah, I can't give any advice because like I have such a hard time naming things. I would just say something that's important to you, but like make it so that way people won't be able to guess what it's from, if that makes sense. So like Potros, you can't really connect it to Atlante because the colors are different. I mean, you can because of the mascot. Some people have figured it out, but it's a little bit difficult. Or like Volare, when I
Mm-hmm.
created it, it was like to fly in Italian, and I'm a big fan of Leonardo da Vinci. So the logo is supposed to be like the aerial screw, and it's flying. So I was like, oh, Volare. So, but other than that, like I have such a hard time naming things. I've been trying to create other things, and like I'm starting a podcast and a couple other things, and we're like trying to come up with a name, and I'm just, you figure it out. I cannot think of it. So
Yeah. I always thought like in terms of naming things, like it's best to like have an idea, go with it for the time being, and then like when you're starting out something, it does not matter if you need to change it in 6 months from now, because no one really knows yet. And I think it's most important to like, just kind of get started what the main idea is. The Volare one, I always liked. Do you know the Dean Martin song,
Yeah,
Volare? That's all. Whenever I got emails from you guys, I was singing that like
I didn't even know
Volare.
that song until
So I like that
after
name.
I made it and somebody had told me about it.
For some weird reason, my high school soccer warm up mix, like me and my friend were in charge of it, but instead of putting like Eminem and stuff on there, we would put Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra as like the playing in the stadium.
That's funny.
I loved it. Um, okay, then to branding it. So you're able to lean into a little bit of history of another club, but tell us as a designer how you came up with the crest and colors and everything.
So this is also gonna be really bad for people who are starting off because again I got lucky, and it's like kind of lame.
Yeah.
So the reason we chose black and gold as our main colors was because at the time that we chose Potros Atlante, they had a goalkeeper jersey that was black and gold, and we really liked it. And it was like, wow, we want our jerseys to look like that. So then we just chose black and gold. That's as simple as it gets. But
It's as simple as it
yeah.
needs to be.
And then
I feel like the Chicago's teams, I don't know which way it went, but like I think it's the Bears and the Fighting Illini are navy blue and orange, and one of them, I think the Bears stole it from University of Illinois. They're just like, we like your colors and we play in your stadium, so we'll just take the colors. And I'm like, that's all you need.
yeah,
You like the
we
colors,
need
take them.
something like black means bold and the gold is the royal, or something like some hidden meaning behind, but it's
Yeah.
not. We just liked how it looked.
Some people get deep with that,
Yeah,
but I always think too, like you can add that later on if you're really trying to get fancy with
exactly.
it. Okay, and then the crest, how do you put that together?
So the crest was actually a high school graphic design project. Originally, our logos had a few redesigns, but the original one, we had to do like a Shark Tank kind of project and come up with the branding for like a fake company. So I chose a soccer club, and uh, I actually like the whole point of the soccer club was it was supposed to give opportunities to those who like couldn't financially afford like expensive clubs or high level competition, which is actually nice because that's kind of what we turned into. But yeah, that's what I designed it. We were called Colts Football Club, which is like the English version of Potros. So I just took the same logo and
Hmm.
just changed the text on it, and that was how we originally started.
It's
Yeah.
perfect. It's perfect, and it's also awesome. You kind of always had this idea in your head somewhere or another. Um, and how was your brother too? Like, is he older
Yeah.
than you?
He's
Uh,
26.
okay, so a few years
Yeah.
older than you. Okay, so and he's played soccer too along with you the
Yeah.
whole time. Okay, so this is a family operation as it started out, but you've had as much as like 80 players, and now have like 30 players in there. It's really
Hmm.
interesting. Our last part is or two parts of starting. Do you have a
Oh
few
yeah,
more
I'm good.
minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the uniforms. Now we have colors and we have the crest. And don't talk. You don't have to like plug anything about Clubhouse or anything here because I like more of an approach of like a independent soccer team trying to figure this out. Like you get your first round of uniforms. What's the search like? What's important to you? I know you started. You could talk a little bit about starting your own sportswear brand too, of like finding suppliers for it. What did that look like, and what does it look like for a new club to find a uniform provider?
Yeah. I think the main thing, if you want to stand out as a club, custom jerseys is the way to go, because if you just get like a black Nike jersey, there's going to be 500 other clubs just like you in the country, or an Adidas or something, like just any stock design. It's just going to be the exact same, but there's no way to distinguish you. Um, so I'm just a big component or a big fan of getting custom jerseys. So I would say I'm lucky since I have the design background that I was able to design it. If the provider offers design services as well, take it. Just look through, take like an hour or a few hours just to search for jerseys that you like. Find the kind of patterns that you like, the kind of colors, effects, whatever you want. Look, my favorite thing to do is, because a lot of professional clubs are very conservative with their jersey design. I like to look at like concept designers on Instagram. So I go through like all my favorite ones and I look at like their stuff for the past just to get inspiration. I just take a bunch of screenshots and then just send that over to your designer and try to get like the inspiration. And I would say don't be too conservative with it. Try to really stand out.
Yeah, you have an opportunity to be a little crazy with it, and I think most clubs should take that opportunity to, because like you said, like you, especially starting out like young, new club, like you need every leverage you can get, and if that can be a unique thing for you, then take it. The nice thing about doing like a Nike or Adidas is you get to have a little bit of like officialness to you right off the bat, so you can be like, yeah, we're Nike, and um, like stuff looks great on the field and everything. And so if you're like maybe starting a youth club or want some like cred with the parents or people to like take note of you that way, you can do that. But the other side of it is like the custom. And when you say custom, you mean like the whole thing is printed edge to edge
Yeah.
custom. You can really turn eyes, and I think make your own type of like really drive home your branding and make yourself unique, which is something that you guys definitely have done. And in terms of picking out where you're getting these from, like what did the search look like? Are you on Google? Were you finding people on Instagram? Were you looking overseas for manufacturers, somebody to do it directly? Like as a new club, what is a uniform kit provider search look like?
Yeah, I was originally just off of Google. I got pretty deep into it. I ended up paying for like one document that actually had like a list of a lot of different providers and everything. It's very difficult to find a good one. That's like a process of like an entire year of searching. Was when I actually settled with you guys.
Damn.
Tried a bunch of different
Wow.
places. So
Wow. What are the issues that you run into? Like what makes it take that long to find somebody? What are your issues?
So I did not know anything about apparel. So it was a lot of trial and error. Finding prices that I could afford, finding people that I could communicate like that they wouldn't take for like an entire month to respond, that it wasn't just fill out a form and we'll get back to you. And then also just I would say like the quality of the jersey, because I've gotten samples from so many different people that are it's if it's good quality, most of the time it's super expensive. Or if it's affordable, it's gonna be like just it'll rip like within a few weeks or something. So that was when I found you guys. You guys were affordable and also uh, really good quality, one of the best quality that I saw, like even compared to some of the ones that were charging like for an entire set of like 30, that was like $60 per jersey. And you guys were
Maybe I need to up my prices.
I don't know, because I immediately said no. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it was just like finding like all the check boxes basically. So it was really difficult to get everyone who checked every box.
Hmm. So you did samples with people? That's how you started to filter it
Yeah,
out?
or if it was just too expensive, even like I wouldn't even
Yeah.
bother like to get a sample.
Yeah. Interesting. And then um, if you're, that's about all I have for the club for now. I think I could dive into a lot of different things. But last thing I just want to touch on, because you have a unique background, if you want to talk about it, with starting the Volare Athletic as like your own brand, which I think comes from this idea I talked about of like people that are creative wanting to do things. Um, you want to tell us like how did that start, when you started to start everything for Potros with uniform search and everything?
Yeah. So we originally just had like standard Adidas jerseys when we started off. And then a custom jersey company actually reached out to us and was like, "Hey, if you're looking for custom jerseys," and we thought the idea was really cool.
Like a manufacturer
Oh no,
overseas?
it was a company here in the United States, but
Okay.
they sourced overseas. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well, I asked that because I feel like I have like a random like beer league account that like just because we have a soccer account, like we get 20 DMs
yeah, we
from manufacturers in Pakistan everywhere being like, I'll make jersey for you. And I'm like, we're good. But I mean, there are people in if you need somebody, you want to try people out, reach out to people in your
Yeah.
DMs. There are a lot of eager people make an account,
Yeah, we
right?
get those weekly also. But yeah, no, this was just starting out. We didn't get those that often, but we got one. So we got the jerseys with them. We weren't the happiest with how they came out. Like design wise, a lot of errors on like numbers and names, and I think it took like 4 months for them to come in and everything. So just overall, we weren't happy with it, and I just kind of like thought like I think I can do better. I was like, I like
Yeah.
designing jerseys. So let me do it for other people. So that was when the search began, like looking for a manufacturer. I think I went through like 3 different that I would like actually make for other teams before I landed with you guys. But yeah, it's just the quality wasn't very good, and I could see why there were errors with the original people that we worked with, because I would work with other companies and then they would not listen to my instructions, and I'd be like, it was very clear what I would be very detailed. I'm sure you've seen like the spec sheets I send out to you guys and everything.
You guys send some, good
Yeah, so
detail.
like that's how detailed I get, and they still make mistakes, and I was just
For reference, Ben will send like, this will go 3 inches from here. This is the size of the logo. This is the font. This is how big the font should be. It shouldn't be any bigger than this. And which the way I'm saying it might say like, oh, it's overkill, but like you're saying, like when you're doing this type of like, customization, that type of detail goes a long way, especially if you're a designer and you want it to print the way that you designed it on your computer. You need to provide that type of detail. Otherwise, there's like little things that are left up to the production team to just fill in the blanks for. So if you don't say how big you want the crest to be, they might scale it for every jersey, or they might not scale it for every jersey, depending on which way you want it, or they might have it line up right
yeah.
here on the collar or up to the side and it's dangling. And things that you don't think about are like little things that like somebody that's running the printer, whether it be someone that's making jerseys here in America or somebody in Pakistan, like that guy is going to decide ultimately unless you tell him exactly where to print that logo. So that's why things get messed up from anybody's orders, because you don't provide enough detail, people will fill in the blanks themselves, and they might not be as good as designers as you
Mhm.
are.
Yeah, it's my biggest pet peeve to see a jersey and the logo, the center of it's not in line with this seam right here. That's why I always draw that dash line on my spec sheet going down right there, because
Yeah,
I see it like off to the side here, and it that's my biggest pet peeve. So like I just try to be as specific as possible.
yeah, yeah, totally. Um, okay, and I think that's it. I just want to talk about that because I think a lot of people will probably are in your shoes of like, I'm a designer. Like I said, soccer players are designers and they're starting clubs. They're like, I've had issues with manufacturers or uniform kit providers. I'm going to do it myself, which is kind of my story. I was a soccer player and I was like, I'm going to do it myself. I did more for like college programs, but um, I think you enter that world and you see like, okay, there's a lot of details that either the kit provider won't ask you for, like Clubhouse. I don't ask soccer teams about the details that you give me, because then we're not gonna be able to like get to the end of the deal because they don't know how far to put
Mhm.
those things. So we'll just guess for them. So at the end of the day, to find a company that you trust will guess the right things
Yeah.
and make sure it's going to come out looking clean. So, um, all right, this is a terrible reason to wrap it up. My AirPods are dying, and then the audio is going to get terrible. So, any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Um, Not that I can think of. I really appreciate you having me, and this was a lot of fun.
Of course, yeah, I'd love to have you on again soon. I think there's a lot of just interesting insight from the eyes of somebody going through like a soccer club startup. So I think a lot of people too will take some interesting tidbits away. So we'll talk soon. One of the new kits coming. We need to talk. We should do like a series on like designing a kit for like the next year until like your next year's
Uh
kit
huh.
comes
Wait till
for your
at least we get
processes,
net zero from last season. Yeah,
right?
once we can afford it.
Yeah, love it. All right, Ben. It was great talking. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.